Have you ever stepped into a crowded room and felt like a stranger in a foreign land? Not because you lack social skills or confidence, but because something deep within whispers that you don't quite belong. Perhaps it's a feeling you've carried for as long as you can remember. A quiet but unshakable sense that your life is different, your journey unique, and your purpose misunderstood by most. Have you ever wondered why this feeling persists? Could it be that this separation is not a flaw, but a divine design? Chosen ones, this is no coincidence. There's a profound reason why you often feel this way. You have been set apart, not cast aside. The world may see it as isolation, but in God's eyes, it's preparation. As it is written, you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. 1 Peter 2:9. To be chosen means to walk a path few dare to tread. It means standing firm in your identity, even when the world around you doesn't understand or embrace it. But let's be honest, this calling can feel heavy at times, can't it? Especially when it leaves you feeling like an outsider. Today, we're peeling back the layers to uncover why chosen ones often find it challenging to be around large groups of people. Is it purely psychological, or is there something spiritual at work? Could it be that your spirit, finely tuned to divine frequencies, struggles to harmonize with the noise of the world? We'll explore this from every angle, mental, emotional, spiritual, and even social, so that by the end of this journey you'll not only understand these feelings, but also embrace them as part of your unique calling. Have you ever felt a deep longing for connection, yet found yourself repelled by superficial interactions? Have you struggled to find your place in a world that seems out of sync with your soul? Know this, you're not alone, and you're not broken. You are being refined, like gold in the fire. So stay with me, because today we'll uncover the truth about why your difference is your strength. This is more than just a quest for belonging. It's a discovery of the sacred purpose God has written into your story. Are you ready to see yourself through His eyes and reclaim the power of being set apart? Let's begin. Chosen ones, why you cannot be around a lot of people. Let's delve into something that might deeply resonate with your soul, your heightened sensitivity to the world around you. Have you ever found yourself drained by loud noises, overwhelmed by bright lights, or unsettled by the energy in a crowded room? These feelings are not figments of your imagination. They're very real. And more importantly, they're significant. This sensitivity is a defining trait of many chosen ones, a reflection of the unique spiritual awareness you carry. You see, being chosen often means that your spirit is finely tuned to the divine frequencies of the spiritual realm. Your heightened sensitivity isn't just a physical phenomenon, it's deeply spiritual. Like a harp string vibrating with the faintest whisper of a breeze, your soul picks up on subtleties that others might never notice. Imagine walking into a bustling marketplace or attending a chaotic event. To others, it's just background noise, but to you, it's as if every sound, every movement, and every energy is magnified, competing for your attention. It's like trying to hear the voice of God while standing in the middle of a storm. Does that sound familiar? This isn't a flaw, it's a sign of your divine calling. The Bible reminds us that sensitivity is a strength, not a weakness. Consider the words of Jesus in Matthew 5:14-16, where He calls His followers the light of the world. To carry this light, your spirit must be acutely aware of both the darkness and the flickers of hope in the world around you. This heightened perception equips you to discern, to understand, and to respond with wisdom, even when others remain unaware. But let's be honest, this gift can feel burdensome at times, can't it? Have you ever felt the need to retreat from the noise, to seek a place where you can hear yourself think, or better yet, hear God's whisper? That urge to withdraw isn't escapism, it's divine alignment. Jesus himself modeled this when he withdrew to quiet places to pray, away from the crowds, Luke 5:16. If even the Son of God needed solitude, how much more might you? This sensitivity, though challenging, is part of your spiritual armor. It allows you to perceive what others cannot, to sense spiritual battles before they manifest in the physical realm. But it also means you must prioritize rest and recharge. When the world becomes too loud, remember that stepping away is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's in the stillness that God restores your strength and reminds you of your purpose. So, why are you so sensitive to the world around you? Because God designed you that way. Your sensitivity is not a curse, but a tool, a way for Him to communicate with you, to guide you, and to prepare you for the unique path ahead. Embrace it, for it's part of the beautiful tapestry of being chosen. When was the last time you honored this gift by seeking solitude with God? Could today be the day you listen more closely to His voice? Let's turn our focus to something that might feel deeply familiar: how you recharge your energy. Do you find yourself craving peace in solitude, feeling more alive and grounded when you're alone than when you're surrounded by others? This isn't simply a matter of being introverted. It's about where your soul finds its true strength and clarity. Could it be that those moments of quiet reflection are where your spirit aligns most closely with God's presence? As a chosen one, your journey isn't like everyone else's. You walk a path that requires a depth of thought, a constant tuning into the whispers of divine guidance. This can only happen in the stillness, where the distractions of the world fall away, and you can truly hear what God is saying to you. Have you noticed that in busy, chaotic environments, it becomes harder to feel that connection, harder to sense His presence? This is why your need for solitude isn't just a preference. It's a necessity for your spiritual growth and strength. Think for a moment about Jesus, the ultimate example of a chosen one. Even as He ministered to multitudes, healed the sick, and taught profound truths, He consistently withdrew to be alone with His Father. Luke 5:16 tells us, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." These weren't mere moments of rest, they were intentional acts of spiritual recharging. In the quiet, He found the strength to fulfill His mission, the clarity to discern God's will, and the peace to press forward, even in the face of overwhelming challenges. Do you see how your own need for solitude mirrors this divine rhythm? Imagine yourself stepping away from a bustling crowd, finding a quiet place where it's just you and God. Can you picture the stillness washing over you, the noise fading as His voice becomes clear? This is where the magic happens, where your purpose is refined, your spirit restored, and your heart reconnected to the divine source of your strength. You are not avoiding the world. You are preparing to face it with renewed vigor. Taking time to be alone is more than just a physical retreat. It's a sacred practice. In these moments, you create space to reflect, to pray, and to align your spirit with God's purpose for your life. This is where the deeper insights about your journey as a chosen one unfold. It's where you rediscover your true self, free from the expectations and pressures of others. Let's not overlook the significance of this practice. It's not about rejecting people or shirking responsibilities. Instead, it's about following Jesus' example, choosing moments of quiet to recharge your soul and to connect with the Creator who called you. Could it be that these moments are God's way of equipping you for the challenges ahead? So the next time you feel the urge to step away from the crowd, honor it. Allow yourself to retreat, not in weakness, but in strength. Remember that these moments of solitude are where your power is renewed, your faith deepened, and your calling clarified. You're not just taking a break, you're stepping into the sacred space where God meets you, whispers to you, and prepares you for what's to come. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly embraced the stillness? Could it be that God is inviting you, right now, to withdraw for a moment and hear his voice anew. You are walking a unique journey, chosen and set apart. Embrace the quiet, for it's in the solitude that your spirit soars and your purpose unfolds. Now let's turn to something truly profound, the special connection you have with God. Have you ever felt that your relationship with Him isn't just a part of your life, but the very foundation of it? As a chosen one, your bond with God isn't confined to Sundays or fleeting moments of prayer. It's a constant presence, a divine thread weaving through your thoughts, decisions, and every step of your journey. But have you ever wondered why this connection feels so intimate, so uniquely yours? The truth is, maintaining this deep relationship often requires a level of stillness and focus that's impossible to find amidst the chaos of a crowd. Picture this. You're standing in a noisy room, conversations overlapping, distractions pulling your attention in every direction. In moments like these, isn't it harder to hear that still, small voice whispering within you? Could it be that your spirit is yearning for the calm, quiet space where God's voice becomes unmistakable? This need for solitude isn't random. It's a sacred call to retreat and reconnect. When you step away from the noise of the world, you're not just resting, you're creating a sanctuary, a space where God can meet you in the quiet. Do you remember how often Jesus sought out solitude to pray? In Mark 1:35 it's written, "Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house and went off to a solitary place where he prayed." Even the Son of God needed moments of stillness to align himself with his Father's will. If Jesus needed this, how much more do we? Think of those moments of quiet as a spiritual recharging station. Just as your phone needs regular charging to function, your spirit requires consistent connection with God to stay vibrant and strong. This isn't about isolating yourself or avoiding people. It's about recognizing that your relationship with God is your greatest source of strength, clarity, and peace. Could it be that these moments of solitude are God's gift to you, a reminder to pause and plug into His divine power? Let's take a moment to reflect on how this impacts your daily life. Have you noticed that in large gatherings or busy environments, it feels like your connection with God is harder to hold on to? That's not a sign of weakness. It's a reflection of how attuned your spirit is to the divine. Your soul craves depth, not noise, purpose, not distraction. In those quiet spaces, you can hear God's voice more clearly, feel His presence more deeply, and discern His will with greater certainty. This longing for solitude is a mark of your calling. It's a sign that your spirit recognizes what truly matters, your relationship with the Creator. Think of how Moses, alone in the wilderness, encountered God through the burning bush. Or how Elijah, fleeing the noise of the world, heard God's voice not in the earthquake or the fire, but in a gentle whisper. 1 Kings 19:12. Could it be that God is inviting you into similar moments, to step away from the chaos and experience His presence in a personal, transformative way? So, the next time you feel the urge to step back from the crowd, don't resist it. Instead, embrace it as an opportunity to deepen your divine connection. Use that time to pray, to reflect, and to listen. Allow God to recharge your spirit, to fill you with His wisdom and guidance. Remember, these moments of solitude aren't just about finding peace. They're about aligning your life with the greater purpose God has set before you. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you truly disconnected from the noise and sought God in the stillness? Could it be that He's waiting for you to make space, to hear what He's been whispering all along? You are not alone in your journey, and your need for quiet is not a flaw, but a testament to the depth of your calling. Let these moments of solitude remind you of who you are, a chosen one, intimately connected to the one who has set you apart. Let's take a moment to explore the unique challenges of being a chosen one, particularly when it comes to leadership. Have you ever felt the heavy weight of responsibility resting on your shoulders? If so, you're not alone. Many chosen ones are called to leadership, whether it's guiding others spiritually, offering wisdom and support, or being a light in a world often shrouded in darkness. But leadership, especially of this kind, is far from easy. It demands more than making decisions or taking charge. It's about carrying the needs, expectations, and even struggles of others. Have you noticed how people seem to turn to you for guidance or comfort? They sense something different about you, an unshakable strength, a deeper connection to God. While this is a great honor, it can also leave you feeling drained, as though you're constantly pouring out of an ever-diminishing cup. Does this resonate with your own experiences? Consider the story of Moses, a leader handpicked by God to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Imagine the immense responsibility he bore, guiding an entire nation through trials, doubts, and wilderness wanderings. At every turn, the people looked to him for answers, solutions, and reassurance. But even Moses, as chosen as he was, found the weight of leadership to be overwhelming. The Bible shows us how Moses managed this burden. He didn't try to carry it alone. Exodus 33:7 reveals that Moses often left the camp to go to the tent of meeting, a sacred place where he could speak with God face to face. In those quiet moments, away from the noise and demands of the people, Moses found clarity, strength, and direction. Have you ever felt the need to find your own tent of meeting, a sacred space to recharge and hear God's voice? Leadership, particularly spiritual leadership, is as draining as it is rewarding. There's a temptation to give endlessly, to always be the one offering advice, support, and comfort. But even Jesus, the ultimate leader, stepped away from the crowds to recharge. Luke 5:16 tells us, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." He understood that leadership requires moments of solitude to maintain spiritual alignment and strength. Let's pause here for reflection. Have you ever felt guilty for wanting to step back, even for a moment? Society often tells us that leaders should always be on, always available. But the examples of Moses and Jesus remind us that true leadership includes knowing when to retreat, to reconnect with God. Could it be that stepping back isn't a sign of weakness, but a necessary act of faith? Think back to Moses again. The burden of leadership wasn't just about guiding the Israelites physically, it was about carrying their spiritual weight. Their complaints, fears, and doubts were placed squarely on his shoulders. Yet, Moses didn't break under the pressure because he knew where to turn. Exodus 34:28 recounts how Moses spent 40 days and nights on Mount Sinai in the presence of God, receiving the 10 Commandments. In those sacred encounters, he found not just instruction but renewal. As a chosen one, your leadership may look different from Moses' journey, but the principles remain the same. Whether you're offering spiritual guidance, emotional support, or simply being a role model, your need for moments of solitude is real and valid. Leadership doesn't mean neglecting yourself. It means recognizing that you can't lead others effectively unless you're spiritually grounded and filled. So, the next time you feel the pull to step away, think of Moses, think of Jesus. Both of them remind us that great leaders find their strength not in constant action, but in retreating to be with God. Those quiet moments aren't just about catching your breath. They're about receiving divine wisdom, aligning with God's plan, and ensuring that you can continue to lead with strength, wisdom, and compassion. Ask yourself this: where is your tent of meeting? It doesn't have to be a literal tent or mountain. It could be a quiet room, a peaceful walk, or even a moment of stillness in your day. Wherever it is, let it be a place where you lay down your burdens and allow God to refill your spirit. In those sacred moments, you'll find the strength to continue walking the path God has set before you. Remember, being a chosen one and a leader is a great honor, but it's not a path meant to be walked alone. By retreating to spend time with God, you're not stepping back. You're stepping into the source of your strength, ensuring that you can continue to fulfill your purpose as a chosen leader. Let's talk about something that's probably very close to your heart: the desire for deep, meaningful connections. As a chosen one, you might find it difficult to connect with others on a superficial level. While some people can easily make small talk or feel comfortable in large social settings, you might be someone who craves something more. A connection that goes beyond the surface, something that touches the soul. This desire for meaningful connections is part of your spiritual makeup. You're not interested in just passing the time or engaging in conversations that don't matter. Instead, you long for relationships that are deep and authentic. You want to connect with people who understand your journey, who can walk alongside you in your faith, and who share your values and beliefs. But here's the challenge. These kinds of connections are rare in a world that often values quantity over quality. Finding people who resonate with your spirit can feel like searching for a needle in a haystack. This can lead to feelings of loneliness or frustration, especially when you're surrounded by people who just don't get you. However, this quest for meaningful connections isn't something to be discouraged by. It's something to embrace. Your desire for deeper relationships is a reflection of your spiritual depth. It's a sign that you're not willing to settle for less than what truly nourishes your soul. And while it might mean that you have fewer friends or spend more time alone, the connections you do make are likely to be profound and life-changing. Think about Jesus and his disciples. Out of all the people he could have chosen, Jesus selected a small group of 12 to be his closest companions. These relationships were deep, built on trust, shared experiences, and a common purpose. Jesus didn't seek out the biggest crowd. He sought out those who would truly understand and support his mission. As a chosen one, you're on a similar quest. It's not about having a large circle of acquaintances, but about finding those few who truly connect with your spirit. So, don't be discouraged if it takes time to find your people. The connections you're looking for are worth the wait, and when you find them, they'll bring a richness and depth to your life that goes far beyond the ordinary. Let's take a moment to talk about something that many chosen ones experience but don't always discuss: feeling misunderstood and isolated. If you've ever felt like people just don't get you, or like you're walking a different path than everyone else, you're not alone. This is a common experience for those who are on a unique spiritual journey. As a chosen one, your perspective on life is often different from those around you. You might see things more deeply, feel things more intensely, and prioritize your spiritual growth over things that others might consider more important. Because of this, it's easy for people to misunderstand you. They might not see the world the way you do, or they might not understand why you make certain choices. This can lead to feelings of isolation, as if you're living in a different reality than those around you. But here's the truth: being misunderstood doesn't mean you're wrong. It doesn't mean you need to change who you are to fit in. In fact, the very things that set you apart are likely the things that make you special and uniquely equipped for your calling. Jesus himself was often misunderstood by those around him. People didn't always grasp his teachings or his mission, and he often faced rejection and isolation because of it. But Jesus knew his purpose, and he stayed true to it, even when it meant walking a lonely path. You might find that your journey as a chosen one leads you down a similar road. It's not always easy to be different, and it can be painful when others don't understand you. But remember, you're not walking this path alone. God understands you completely, even when others don't. He knows your heart, your intentions, and your struggles. It's okay to feel isolated at times, but don't let that isolation make you doubt your path. Instead, let it be a reminder that you're walking a unique journey, one that not everyone is meant to understand. Embrace who you are and the path you're on, knowing that even if others don't get it, God does, and that's what truly matters. Let's explore what the Bible has to say about walking a path that not everyone understands. As a chosen one, you're likely familiar with the feeling of being set apart, of walking a road that's different from most. This can sometimes feel isolating, but the Bible offers us encouragement and perspective. One verse that really speaks to this experience is Matthew 7:13-14, where Jesus says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." This verse reminds us that the path to true life, the life that God has called you to, isn't the one that everyone takes. It's a narrow path, often walked by few, but it's the one that leads to the deepest fulfillment and purpose. As a chosen one, you're on that narrow path. It's a road that requires courage, faith, and sometimes solitude. It's not always easy, and it's not always understood by others, but it's the path that leads to the life God has planned for you. The fact that it's a lonely road at times doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Remember, throughout the Bible, we see examples of those who walked this narrow path. Prophets, disciples, and even Jesus himself often stood apart from the crowd, following God's direction, even when it led them into difficult or lonely places. But their obedience to God's call was always met with his faithfulness and reward. So, when you feel isolated or misunderstood, take comfort in knowing that you're in good company. You're walking the same path that many faithful servants of God have walked before you. It's a path that, though narrow, leads to a life filled with God's presence and his purpose for you. And that's something worth holding on to, even when the journey feels tough. Let's reflect on the beauty and necessity of solitude. For chosen ones, solitude isn't just a preference, it's a sacred requirement, a space where the soul breathes freely, unburdened by the clamor of the world. It is in these moments of quiet that your connection with God deepens, your journey becomes clearer, and your spirit finds the rest that the constant motion of life often denies. In a world that glorifies busyness, solitude is sometimes misunderstood. Society often equates being alone with loneliness or isolation, urging us to fill every moment with activity and companionship. But solitude is not about being lonely. It's about being present. It's a divine invitation to step away from the distractions, to let the noise settle, and to immerse yourself in the stillness where God waits to speak. Have you ever paused in the quiet and felt the subtle whisper of his voice, calling you to rest in him? That whisper is your lifeline. In solitude, you hear it clearly, guiding, comforting, and empowering you. It's a gift that reminds you of your true source of strength. Think of Jesus. Time and again, he withdrew to lonely places to pray, as noted in Luke 5:16. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. He wasn't escaping his mission or avoiding the crowds, he was making room for communion with his Father. In the wilderness, on mountaintops and in gardens, Jesus sought solitude to align himself with God's will. It was in these quiet moments that he found the strength and clarity to fulfill his purpose. Have you ever considered why even the Son of God needed solitude? If Jesus, with all his divine power, prioritized time alone with the Father, how much more do we need it? Solitude wasn't a luxury for him, it was a necessity, a lifeline that sustained him amid the demands of his ministry. In your own life, solitude can be a sanctuary. It's where you can lay down the weight of expectations, pause from striving, and simply be. It's not about doing nothing. It's about doing the most important thing, connecting with God. In Psalm 46:10, we're reminded, "Be still and know that I am God." That stillness, that sacred pause, is where your soul is refreshed, your faith is strengthened, and your purpose is illuminated. Yet, solitude can also be challenging. The silence can feel uncomfortable at first, as though the absence of noise exposes fears, doubts, or unresolved questions. But don't shy away from that discomfort. It's often in the stillness that God brings healing, clarity, and renewal. The quiet allows you to confront what you might otherwise avoid, drawing you closer to the truth of who He is and who He has called you to be. So, when you feel the world pulling you in 100 directions, remember the example of Jesus. Follow His lead and make time for solitude, not as an escape, but as a return. Let it be your sacred space to recharge, to listen, and to rest in the arms of the one who knows you completely and loves you unconditionally. When you choose to embrace solitude, you're not merely stepping back from the hustle and bustle of life. You're entering into a sacred sanctuary where the distractions of the world fade and the presence of God becomes your sole focus. It's not just a pause from activity, it's a divine appointment. In those quiet, unguarded moments, you have the freedom to reflect on your life, to pour your heart out in prayer, and to truly listen. Have you ever wondered why God's voice often comes as a whisper rather than a thunderous proclamation? It's because whispers require you to draw close, to still yourself, to lean in with your whole being. This is why solitude isn't something to fear but to cherish. It is not loneliness, it's an invitation to commune with the Creator in a way that's profoundly personal. Think about Elijah in 1 Kings 19:11-12, standing on the mountain waiting for the Lord. God wasn't in the wind, the earthquake, or the fire. He came in a gentle whisper. Could it be that in the stillness of your solitude, God is drawing near to you in ways you've never imagined? These moments of quiet are where clarity emerges, peace takes root, and strength is renewed to carry on the path God has carefully laid before you. While solitude is vital for spiritual growth, we must also recognize that no one is meant to walk this journey entirely alone. As a chosen one, your soul craves deeper connections, not just surface-level interactions, but relationships that resonate with your spiritual depth. And yet, doesn't it sometimes feel like finding such connections is nearly impossible? That's because your calling sets you apart, and not everyone is equipped to walk this path with you. The right community isn't about quantity, it's about quality. It's not about being surrounded by people, but about being surrounded by the right people. These are the ones who understand your unique journey, who share your hunger for truth, and who will uplift and encourage you when life feels heavy. Imagine the strength of having someone who can celebrate your victories in faith and pray for you in your struggles. These relationships aren't just nice to have, they're essential. Proverbs 27:17 reminds us, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." Could it be that God is preparing such people to enter your life right now? However, finding these divine connections takes time, and that's okay. It's better to wait for relationships that truly align with your purpose than to settle for superficial bonds that drain your spirit. Consider Jesus. He chose only 12 disciples to walk closely with him, and even among them, he had an inner circle. He didn't seek the largest crowd. He sought those who were willing to share in his mission, grow in faith, and stand by him. If even Jesus prioritized depth over numbers, how much more should we? So where do you begin to find these connections? Perhaps it's in a small Bible study group, an online fellowship, or one or two kindred spirits who genuinely share your faith. These relationships are worth the wait because they bring belonging, encouragement, and a shared sense of purpose. Have you prayed for God to reveal these people to you? Maybe He's already placing them in your life, waiting for you to recognize them. Let's pause and draw strength from Scripture. The life of a chosen one is not always easy. At times, the road feels overwhelming, and the weight of being misunderstood can press heavily on your heart. But even in these moments, God's presence is a constant source of comfort. Proverbs 18:24 speaks to this, saying, "A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." This verse reminds us that it's not the number of companions that matter, but the quality of those relationships, and above all, the assurance that God Himself is your closest companion. How powerful is it to know that the Creator of the universe walks with you, strengthens you, and loves you unconditionally? When the journey feels lonely, have you considered leaning into His presence as your refuge? Psalm 46:1 declares, "God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." What if your most challenging moments are the very times He's drawing closest to you? Remember this: you are chosen, you are loved, and you are never alone. God's plans for you are far greater than the temporary hardships you face. With Him by your side, you have the strength to overcome every obstacle, the peace to weather every storm, and the clarity to walk boldly in your purpose. Hold on to that truth and let it sustain you. As we near the end of this video, let's take a moment to reflect on the profound insights we've shared together. From the very beginning, we delved into why chosen ones often feel the need to step away from large crowds, and we discussed the distinct challenges that come with walking a spiritual path like yours. It's easy to feel out of place when you're sensitive to the world around you, whether it's the overstimulation of people, noise, or expectations. These feelings are not weaknesses, though. They're part of the unique, sacred journey God has entrusted to you. We've explored the deep need for personal reflection, a time for your soul to connect with God, and how this space isn't about avoiding people, but about finding a moment to listen and be renewed. We also talked about the heavy burden that comes with leadership, the responsibility of guiding others, carrying their struggles, and staying faithful to the calling. These aren't burdens to shy away from, but rather signs that you're walking a path filled with purpose, even when it feels heavy. Through this, we've also touched on the profound longing for meaningful, authentic connections. It's perfectly okay to seek relationships that nourish your soul, even if that means having fewer people in your life. It's better to have a few who understand you deeply than to be surrounded by many who don't. And yes, being misunderstood is painful, but as we've seen, it often signifies that you are walking a unique and important path, one that God has specifically designed for you. Jesus Himself was misunderstood, and He withdrew at times to be alone, to pray, and to find strength in His Father. Through it all, we have rooted ourselves in the truth of God's Word, which reassures us that even Jesus sought solitude, that God understands our need for quiet moments of reflection, and that no matter how lonely the road may feel, we are never truly alone. God's presence is always with us, guiding us, comforting us, and providing the strength we need. Now, as we close, I want to encourage you to take everything we've discussed today and reflect on it in your own life. Ask yourself, how can you embrace your need for solitude and see it as a blessing rather than a burden? How can you deepen your relationship with God during these quiet moments, allowing Him to speak to your heart? And perhaps most importantly, how can you seek out those meaningful, authentic connections that will nourish your soul and encourage you on this journey? If this video has resonated with you, I encourage you to share it with someone who might need to hear these words. You never know how a simple act of sharing can make a difference in someone else's life. After all, we're all on this journey together, walking side by side, even if at times it feels like we're walking alone. And if you haven't already, I'd love for you to consider subscribing to this channel. By subscribing, you'll be joining a community of like-minded individuals, all on this sacred journey of being chosen. Together we'll find support, encouragement, and the understanding that only those who walk a similar path can offer. Before we close, I want to leave you with one final thought. Being chosen isn't always easy, but it is a tremendous blessing. You have been set apart for a special purpose, a purpose that may not always be easy to see, but is always worth the effort. Even when the road gets tough, remember, you are never alone. God is with you every step of the way. He is guiding you, loving you, and providing for you, even when the journey feels overwhelming. Take comfort in the words of Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Let these words be your source of strength and encouragement, especially when the path ahead seems uncertain. Thank you for taking this time to reflect with me today. I pray that you found both comfort and insight. As you move forward on your journey, keep walking with faith, knowing that you are chosen, loved, and never truly alone. Until next time, take care and continue to walk in the light of God's purpose for your life.